wabarakatuh. Enjoy discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you for the Mr. Tantan Taufiq Lubis has give the opening remarks for the all. And then for the first session, we also hear from the first speaker, Mrs. Shinta Widjaja Kamdani, for the Vice Chairperson of Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then he wanted to give the 15 minutes for the explanation. After that, we also directly to make the answer and question because Ms. Shinta Widjaja Kamdani wanted to have another agenda after this discussion. Okay, for the Miss Shinta Widjaja Kamdani, the time and the place is for you.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for the opportunity to invite us from the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry to share a little bit position. Obviously, we should have met in a better circumstances, but unfortunately, the current condition has impacted us all. So if we look at the impact of COVID-19, this is the with over 54,000 deaths and more than 1.5 million reported cases. So despite the lower mortality rates than other recent epidemics, we believe that this pandemic has caused the most severe global crisis since World War II. Through geographic spread and transmission center across most of the regions globally, it has effectively stopped economies around the world. And I think contagiousness as COVID-19 is more transmissible than even a seasonal flu. So at the beginning of 2020, the global economy has faced already many risks. The geopolitical uncertainties in Middle East, trade war, but this COVID-19 pandemic has definitely affected global economy to enter a recession in 2020. So if we look at IMF projection, according to IMF, the global economy is expected to contract by about 3% in 2020. Compared with a contraction of 0.1% in 2009 when we had the last crisis, the worst year of the previous recession. According to JP Morgan, global economic growth in 2020 is projected to hit minus 1.1% and minus 2.2%, according to the Economist Intelligence Unit. So we are going to have negative growth globally. So this year decline amount to about $2.7 trillion of global losses for the roughly $90 trillion global economy. However, I think with the high level of uncertainty indicates that there is still a downside risk in this projection. So we never know how long this pandemic will continue. So how is this impacted Indonesia? I think as of 18 April 2020, there have been more than 6,000 reported cases and 8% mortality rate. So the widespread of COVID-19 has definitely forced the government of Indonesia to implement large-scale of social distancing and affected both supply and demand of the economy. In the demand perspective, social distancing measures are lowering consumption demand by definitely limiting the spending on leisure and entertainment services. Unfortunately, the uncertainty about the future makes consumers more cautious about discretionary purchases, which have severely affected secondary and tertiary market. Consumers are also wary of setting up traveling plans due to the uncertainty about the end of the quarantine. Moreover, on the supply side of the economy, the disruption of supply chain arise due to the global interconnectivity of industry. And this we can see mostly from China suppliers, as China is one of the biggest trading partner of Indonesia, with total trade value of about $80 billion in 2019. Factories are also being temporarily closed and lower their productivity. This is reflected from the data from Indonesia factory production, which contracted by 5.1% to 45.4% compared to the 51% in 2019. The biggest impact of the epidemic on the Indonesian economy so far, we believe, is due to the disruption of the supply chain, in particularly from China industry lockdown, travel ban policies, high global market volatility, and a decrease in global demand due to the outbreak. Growth in Indonesia is expected to contract by 5% and hit at 1%. However, in the worst case scenario, Indonesian Finance Minister Ibu Sri Mulyani has just projected that Indonesia economic growth may hit minus 0.4% in 2020. In addition to the widespread impact of the epidemic on the national economy, has increasingly spread to all sectors of the economy. Although we can see some sectors are impacted more, so we have winners and losers. Definitely the sector that impacted most in Indonesia is the tourism sector. When we look at tourism sector, especially we talk about hotel businesses are we already closed as of today about 1,800 hotels in Indonesia, so it's severely impacted, and occupancy rate has dropped as low as 20% after Indonesia announced its first cases in March 2nd. It also impacted the transportation industry, the retail industry, automotive industry, and of course many others. What I would like to perhaps share with you right now is more of what the government has been doing in facing this pandemic. So what is really the strategic solution for businesses? And I think this is some areas that I would like to share. So first, if we look at the government spending on COVID, actually the government is currently focusing on 3 areas. The first priority is health. The budget spending for health amounted to about 75 trillion rupiah. And this is used for healthcare spending, such as medical devices, personal protective equipment, rapid test regions, and also the HR support. We obviously, in this condition, we continue still facing problem in acquisition of the medical devices, especially also on, we have issues on the medical expert and medical staff. So the healthcare is definitely a priority. The second is also related to the social safety net. And if you look at what the government has been doing so far, we have what we call the social safety net program, social program for 10 million people below poverty line will be paid monthly starting from April to 200,000 rupiah, increasing up about. So before we target only the bottom 25%. Now they increase to the bottom 40%. We also have what we call the Kartu Sembako or grocery card. This will be raised from 15 million to 20 million people. And the benefit also increased to 200,000 for 9 months. And then we also have what we call the pre-employment card, increasing from 10 trillion to 20 trillion. And this is an interesting part because there has been a lot of argument about our pre-employment card. The original idea of pre-employment card in Indonesia prior to COVID is supposed to be helping the students graduating to enter the workforce. So this was supposed to be a training card. But due to COVID, it's been used now to give also incentive to those informal workers and also those workers that has been terminated. So this actually give incentive for also small and medium enterprises as well. Unfortunately, the number is still we have the first when we first opened, the government first opened, already have 5 million registered, but unfortunately the accessibility for the cards right now is very limited. So on a weekly basis, the government can only give about 160,000 cards per week. So they're trying to increase this number, but it's still very limited. And it consists of a quota for training, cash incentive for 4 months, 600,000 each month. And I think this is something that currently is already in progress. The problem is, of course, data, because a lot of our informal workers, informal sectors are not included in the data. So this is something that the government have to really pay attention to. We also have waiver for 3 months electricity costs for 24 million 450 customer and 450 PA customers, and 50% discount for 7 million subsidized 900 PA customer. Additional, we also have housing incentive up to 175,000. They also support. This is, I think, some of the areas that the central government is giving for social safety net. But on top of that, there is also some support given by the local government, and each local government has their own policy in terms of supporting on the social safety net part. Now, the last one is support for the industry. Now, if we look at the industry, the budget is about 70 trillion. At the moment for the industry, they give income tax, or we call page 21, which is borne by the government for the worker income that's no more than 200 million per year. But this is only in the manufacturing industry, which is export oriented. And we have to seek for the government to expand this to more sectors. Besides that, there's also PPH 22, which is for the import incentive for the import duties for 19 specific sectors. Again, this is only for the manufacturing export base, and also reduction of corporate income tax by 30%. And again, also for specific, only for manufacturing. We also have acceleration of VAT institutions, and we have suspension of the credit, what we call the small credit for SME installment. So these are some of the area that it support industry, and the biggest issue right now is definitely the number stimulus economy that's budgeted by the government, 405 trillion, is definitely not sufficient. So we from the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has requested for at least 10% of our GDP, which is 1,600 trillion. Many of the other countries have spent minimum 10% of their GDP for COVID-19. So we believe the number needs to really be much higher. There is also a restructuring, debt restructuring that is given to industries, but this also has not been able to be implemented properly, although the policy has come out. And this also supposed to help the small medium enterprises below the 10 billion credit facility, as well as those companies that are impacted above 10 billion that are impacted due to COVID. So there are a number of incentives that are given. Our biggest problem is right now the size, the number is too small. Second, we also have problem with implementation. So even the existing one, our implementation are still challenged on the ground. We are also right now very concerned of the unemployment rate because this will definitely increase. So far, the number last week, for example, was 1.5 million, and now it's already about double, about 3 million. So it's increasing very rapidly, and this is a very, very big concern. And also, since most of the company can't pay any more salaries, and Ramadan is coming, so we have to look at how we're going to pay the THR. So those are some incentives that government Indonesia has given. I just want to close with a number of things. One is perhaps our proposal on some strategic solution for business and entrepreneurs to navigate through the ongoing crisis. I think a strategic step that needs to be implemented by the company is to prioritize employee health and safety first, obviously. And it does greatly affect employee productivity. As you know, a lot are now also already working from home. And this is a new norm that we have to follow. And it has also created a lot of unrest among employees. Therefore, companies must implement policy to improve employee safety by increasing hygiene standards in factories, providing facilities and medical equipment needed by employees, and so forth. Also need to implement SOP related to the social distancing at work from home, and so forth. And the second is with the supply chain disruption, company needs to reevaluate their business supply chain strategy by finding supplier and alternative market, maintaining adequate inventory or stock of goods, performing raw material efficiency, and utilizing technology for real-time monitoring. The third is the company also need to prepare business strategies into the three COVID-19 deployment scenario, namely the optimistic, the quick recovery, the moderate scenario, and the pessimistic or worst case scenario. In all these three scenarios, company need to identify crucial factors that significantly influence the company revenue and costs. As you know, the biggest problem right now is cash flow management. So this is a priority that company needs to be aware on the disruption of the company liquidity. The fourth is very important for company to keep abreast of the development and changes in consumer behavior today to continue to survive and maximize the market demand that still exists. And I think we can really see the transitioning from offline store to online stores. So this is, we have to be adapt and agile to this. Also, I think I want to touch a little bit on the communication and transparency to employee is very important. I think this is something that is crucial in all organizations. I also want to close by discussing some area of potential cooperation between Indonesia and Turkey in facing this COVID-19. As you know, Turkey and Indonesia is closely cooperate in a number of international organizations. like the UN, OIC, G20, the 8, and MICTA. Indonesia is one of the founding members of the Association of the ASEAN. And since July 27, Turkey is a sectoral dialogue partner of ASEAN. And since 2010, the Turkish embassy in Jakarta has been accredited to ASEAN. So currently, some 2,400 Indonesian citizens reside in Turkey, while some 430 citizens have their permanent residency in Indonesia. I think Indonesia and Turkey are also currently working on what we call the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and reducing or removing trade barriers and creating conducive investment climate. So this is something that I think we need to really work through despite this COVID-19 situation. So looking at this, I think there should be a few important parts that we should emphasize on, which not only lockdown or limiting movement, but also international cooperation. One that will be a definite game changer. So first is the coordinated global response that limit the spread of the virus. I think the opportunity to foster the right kind of international cooperation where scientists, researchers, and cooperation from Indonesia and Turkey could work together. Also exercising international leadership. I think for sure, as mentioned above, Indonesia and Turkey has closely cooperate in a number of international organizations. Therefore, there is an opportunity for both countries to proactively join on, perhaps we can look at projects that we can do together. Also sharing best practices from the business side, especially. And I think this is something that we have to continue doing as we are both needed and we both are reliable partners. So these are just some of the things that I want to share today, and I look forward for answering some of your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Mrs. Shinta Kamdani for this explanation. It's the nice information about the Indonesian government policy. And okay, Mrs. Shinta, do you have the advance time, or you must to going now?
I have about. Do you have? I have about 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. Okay. If from our participant, if you have the question, okay, press your raise hand. Is it directly for Mrs. Shinta? If you didn't have the any question, we have to going to the directly to the second speaker. Okay. Maybe if you didn't have the any question, we'll to deliver the second speaker, the Mr. Furkan Akbal as the
Excuse
Gench.
me, can I ask to Ms. Shinta Kamdani?
Okay. One question only.
Okay.
After this, enough.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Shinta Kamdani, the inspirational woman from Indonesia. Okay, Bu Shinta, how do you think about the regulation, for example, POJK number 11, from OJK, because I think the regulation make uncertainty at the field, because the financial institution and the entrepreneur have the different interpretation about the POJK, because the entrepreneur think that it is mandatory, the regulation POJK mandatory to finance institution to give us the relaxation, but we know the POJK not mandatory. It just if the finance bank want to give the relaxation, bank can give it, but if bank don't want give the relaxation, the execution is at banks. So about how do you think about the regulation? Because I think the regulation from the government make uncertainty at the field. Thank you, Ms.
Yes, Yes, we have similar view because when we first when the first of the POJK was launched, we were already very concerned because obviously even the content of the POJK, as you know, has very much a lot of misperception. At the beginning, they even said that it's only impacted those that are with the credit line of below 10 billion. So we clarify, and OJK has said that no, this is all sectors that are impacted due to COVID. Now, on the implementation, we have been monitoring, and you're right, at the moment, only few banks are actually executing. If I'm not mistaken, BRI, because they give specifically a lot to SMEs, they are the one who has executed. But many of the other banks, and especially those that has credit line above 10 billion, has not been realized. So the problem is when we talk to the banks, they are really worried about their own liquidity, because they said if they give the restructuring to many of their creditors, then it will impact their own liquidity. So we feel that the government needs to intervene. First of all, the government needs to be very clear that they are the one who have to facilitate to ensure that banks will do the restructuring. But also the banks need support as far as the funding is concerned. This is why we believe the number needs to increase. So there needs to be a finance, the government needs to give enough funding in order to be able for this to work. So there needs to be also financial reform. And I think we need to look at this, why the government now is also looking at doing a recovery bond and so forth, so that the government can actually also request funding through the recovery bond directly. So this is I think if we want to make it work, first we need OJK to really socialize this properly and instruct basically banks, but also for government to really support our banking sector, because if not, then they will be the one who will also have liquidity. Our problem right now is time. And this is why I said it's about the amount and it's about time. Because if we are not moving enough, fast enough, it will impact already many of our industries. So that's why we have been really pushing our government that they really need to do something very fast. We can't wait very long. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for Mrs. Shinta Kamdani for the explanation. But now we'll direct to the second speaker, Mr. Furkan Yunus Akbal from Turkey of the Genç MÜSİAD. Okay, the time and place for you, Mr. Furkan Yunus Akbal. Buyurun Nabi.
Now you can see me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to thank to Allah to give an opportunity to meet with our friends again from Indonesia, the country who has the most Muslim population. I hope everyone is okay and everyone's family also are okay. And there is a big crisis, but Alhamdulillah, it cannot prevent our union and we can come together again. And this situation started in our country middle of the March, and since the first time our organization, which is Young MÜSİAD, have taken an action against the corona. Because the corona is obligate the people to stay at home and work less and stuck in panic. So we directly called our branch and the head of our branch and our members to give and hope advice and to stay strong and to focus the new opportunities, because we believe that every crisis has many opportunities. But if you really want to find that opportunities, you have to focus on that. So alhamdulillah, now every members are keeping up the organized programs, meetings, and how we deal with the corona psychological effect and understand the new world condition after June, because we believe that it will finish in almost June, and after June we will wake up the new world. And then also we want to come together with our brothers from different countries, and flight can be banned from our governments, but our heart bridge is still working, and we are here, alhamdulillah. And also I would like to share some pages. Just a second. It is the first try for me. Now, can you see that picture?
Geldi görüntü.
Tamam abi.
Tamam.
Yes, Iqbal.
These numbers are the effects of that corona in Turkey. And this page belonged to yesterday, and you can see the test numbers in the Turkey here, and this is the cases, and this number is unfortunately the death number. Almost 30 days passed, and we reached the 107,069 people. And this is the recovery numbers. Actually, five days ago, it was almost less than the 1,000, but now we are going to 2,000 for the recovery number. Inshallah, we hope that we are keeping up to reach to stable rate. Now it is increasing day by day, but inshallah, we hope that next week we will reach the top of cases for corona. And this is this. How can I change that? Stop share. And this is our governments react for the corona. Everyone, I think, can say that. And the first week are all schools, cinemas, and the public open places, and some international flights banned by our governments. And the second week, all international flights also banned for our governments, and 65 over age is locked down to their house. And the third week, lower than the 20 years people should stay at home. And nowadays, also for today, all people should lock down on weekends, and every weekends now is for 2 weeks we are stay at home. And after this situation, our governments take an action, and we are I think most how we say country who has more experience about managing crisis, because since 2011 we have faced many challenges. For example, we faced a coup attempt and some earthquakes, also some economic attacks from the Western countries. So we can now we can know how we handle with the crisis. So inshallah, we hope that we will recover almost June. And just a second. And our government is managing is good with our strong health system, and last week they announced 5 new hospitals will be built by our government, and some mayors also opened the new hospitals. And also, I would like to mention about some compensations. 3 months postponed in the interest of bank loans for people, and the 6 months postponed for some tax payments, and 100 billion Turkish lira also saving package our government announced that, and 2 million households for 100 Turkish lira for each household. You can see that also. And now, inshallah, we believe that with our praise, inshallah, we will handle the situation. And now, okay. Inshallah, we will handle the situation. Also, our government in that term helped to more than 30 countries. Does anyone ask something? Especially for the European countries, such as Spain, France, and Bosnia, also some African countries also we sent help. Alhamdulillah, now we are managing, everything is good, and our governments try to under control that corona effects. Inshallah, we will open our companies again. Inshallah, we will go out like old times, and we will visit in all of you in Indonesia, and we will come together in some programs, inshallah, again. And I think that's all for now. Maybe I forget to say, and now since beginning of this situation start, we organize some programs about the psychological effect for corona, because we can see a lot of people were affected by the corona, and they lock down their not in the house, even for their room. They don't talk anyone, and that's why if you find the opportunities, and if you want to improve your business or your countries, you should have the clear minds. That's why we focus on the psychological effect of corona, and we learn many things about how we handle it, inshallah. And also we invite the advisor of the economy and foreign policy for our minister, and we talk something about our company's policy. Inshallah, we learn many things, and we can see the after June clear, and inshallah we will take an action as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
So Mr. Yusuf is here. He is one of the member of us, and maybe he wants maybe mention some points. Mr. Yusuf.
Okay.
Thank you for giving speech to me. I'll just mention some points that our president has mentioned also for Turkish restrictions and for Turkish promotions that we have done through the crisis process. Maybe they can give some good examples. Maybe there are going to be some good examples for Indonesia as well. That's why I would like to share just for 1 minute. For Turkey, we have announced 100 billion TL, 100 billion Turkish lira saving package for our citizens. I don't know how much the Indonesian government has announced for their citizens. We would like to learn about this point as well, by the way. As our president said, the government has made some compensations through the banks, through some taxes. Also, the government has made some good favors for the citizenships, for the citizens. I especially would like to mention one point, then I will finalize my words. Alhamdulillah, right now we are getting our masks to our home by the cargo companies, by the transportation companies, and all of these masks are given by the governments. While
You don't have to pay for masks.
Yeah, while people in Europe are suffering for masks and they are paying hundreds of euros to some dozens of masks, we are not paying anything, and we are just getting it from our home, from our home's door. It was a good, very good implementation by a government, which might be a good example for the other governments as well. We would like to here give some points that you can do in your country, you can suggest to your government. In this meaning, we would like to get some specific points from your side as well. If there is any good example that we can implement, we can suggest to our government to implement, because as MÜSİAD, we have created a crisis desk. Through this desk, our members are delivering their complaints and suggestions and demands to us, and we are delivering this to government to make some changes and to make some restrictions and promotions accordingly. And Alhamdulillah, as our President Furkan mentioned, within 4 weeks, we have done very fast actions. We are, as a Turkey, we are the first country who has taken the restrictions of international flights in the first week. We are the first country who closed the schools in the first cases days. So in this meaning, we believe that our government has taken this issue very strictly and instantly. In this meaning, if there is anything we can do for Indonesian government and people, we would like to help here as well. As you know, MÜSİAD has a branch in Indonesia as well. In this meaning, we have a connection to Indonesia by representative, by branch over there. We are always here for you. We would like to mention this especially. And the last point I would like to mention is Turkey has managed the process very well and helped over 30 countries. Most of them were in Europe because they were very in need. But right now, our government is planning to extend these helps, these promotions to other countries as well. In this meaning, if there is any need for Indonesia, we would like to know, and accordingly we can deliver it as a message to the government. Thank you.
And also, if you face with any corona cases, you can send the direct people to hospital, because every hospital work for the government, even for the private hospitals as well, and you don't have to pay anything for the hospital services. And Alhamdulillah, as I say before, we are so lucky because we have many experience, unfortunately, but inshallah, we will recover as soon as possible, as I said before.
Okay, thank you for the Mr. Furkan Akbal and then Mr. Yunus Akbal for this explanation. Maybe before you leave this discussion, we have the one question for the participation. If the participant wanted to ask, you just give the sign, the raise hand or comment. Please. There's a participant you wanted to ask. Okay. Sorry, your sound is not clear. What's your name? Hello? There's any question?
He is using Morse codes.
Yeah, maybe it's not good. Okay, Mr. Furkan Akbal. Thank you. I am also the member of MÜSİAD Indonesia.
Inshallah, we will teach Turkish to you.
Yeah, inshallah, I will
Corona.
come in
We are
November.
waiting.
In November, yeah, you will meet in November in MÜSİAD Expo.
Inshallah, we are waiting you.
Okay. Okay. Another question?
Sorry. Okay. Can I ask to Mr. Furkan?
Okay. What's your name?
Okay. Ajib. I'm.
Oh, Mr. Ajib from. Okay, this done.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Ajib.
Thank you, Mr. It's nice time to can discuss with you. I have two questions to you. For the first, how about your currency? Turkey is lira, I think.
Yeah,
how
Turkish
about
lira.
lira with the dollar? And how deep your economic question comment give give the backup for the crisis, how much and where it come from your internal liquidity or from debt with sovereign debt, for example. I think the two question is for you, and thank you.
I would like to answer this question, if it's okay.
Okay.
First of all, I mentioned already that our Turkish government has announced 100 billion Turkish lira saving package, which equals in terms of dollar like 15,000 billion dollars. In this meaning, our government has not taken any debt, especially our President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is insisting on not receiving any fund from IMF. Alhamdulillah, in this meaning, Turkey has finished its debt to IMF in 2011, as you know. And last year, we have offered IMF some money to as a debt to them. In this meaning, our financial backup is good, not like before. And Turkish government has announced 1,000 TL, 1,000 Turkish lira help for each household, and the capacity of this household is 2 million people. So as Turkish government right now, we are giving 1,000 TL help to those who are not working because of the virus issues right now. And the last point, there is short-term allowance right now. What is this short-term allowance? As you know, right now the companies are closing down or just letting their employees to get some free time without unpaid off days. Especially these unpaid off days are paid by the government to them. Right now the government has just announced a new rule, and the government is saying that we are giving the companies money to compensate their employees' salaries. And this is valid for all companies in Turkey. It is a very good point for the employees, because we know that thousands of people each day is right now are fired by the employers. And this is a good point.
You forget to say our government also started one campaign for the solidarity, and every people and every huge companies also can donate for it. And we collected more than billion lira also. This is the one of our found from our people.
That's an important point. But unfortunately, the Turkish lira right now is losing value against dollar. And we are seeing this process a kind of conjunctural situation. And we believe that we can compensate it, we can fight against it easily as we did before. In this meaning, we are right now in a sensitive point like all other countries, of course, but we are better than what we expect.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very give me an enlightenment. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you for Mr. Yusuf for your answer. And then this the one question from the chat. This up to you for Yusuf or Mr. Furkan will answer. This from Mr. Edi Setiadi. Is there any relaxation policy from financial regulator to reduce the impact of the pandemic to the economy, especially to the bank's client in Turkey? Can you hear me?
If the president allows me, I would like to answer this question as well.
Okay.
I have mentioned in my speech that the government has announced some packages for the seasons. One of them was including the banks also. Yesterday, not yesterday, so 2 days ago, our president has made a strong speech, and this speech was directly addressing to the private banks, private bank companies, and he was emphasizing that the private banks were not helping the people in this process. But Alhamdulillah, in Turkey, we have strong state banks, and the state banks are composed of the industry more than 60%. That is why the market is still good for the bank customers. And these state banks right now have given some compensations to their customers. The first of them is it postpones all of the interest of loans which is given to the customers for 3 months. So if you are a customer who got a loan from a state bank, you are not paying any interest for 3 months. This is first point. Second point, right now as the government, normally there are some loan rates that you should, how can I say? If you are a customer, if you are gonna buy a car or flat, you should pay a particular down payment rate. Then you will get the loan from the bank. This down payment rate has decreased by the government in these days as well. In this meaning, people are easier to demand the loan, which is a good sign as well. And the last point, regardless of bank, but related with taxes, as I said, right now, Turkish government has postponed most of the taxes for 6 months. So if you are a person or a company, you will not pay any tax for 6 months for in order to compensate your expenses. Yeah, this was very strong compensation, by the way. Yeah, we really are admire and satisfied with this compensation.
Okay. The answer. Thank you for your answer, Mr. Yusuf Akbal. Okay, we are going to the next speaker after this.
Again. Mr.
Yeah, okay.
Shahraza.
Yeah, can I ask questions, please?
Okay.
Yeah.
Only one question.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Radianta.
All right. Okay. Thank you. There's an interesting explanation from Turkey. There was also mention about the layoff issues that also happens in Turkey. I was curious to know what sort of programs that been enrolled in Turkey regarding the layoffs. In Indonesia, we have such a program that we call an online education or trainings that been distributed through some online platforms. However, it's still under debates that whether the program is effective and reaching the right target. So I'm really curious about how, if there's any program in Turkey that has been enrolled as such for addressing the unemployment or layoffs. Thank you.
I can answer also. Yesterday, our government regulated rules, and it started yesterday. No one, it is forbidden to lay off someone, your employees, and but there is another option. If you don't lay off your employees, government pay instead of you to your employee. And for the rate, it was the highest level before Corona. So we haven't affected now, but if government hasn't done anything about that cases, it will start next week. But yesterday they reacted, so we will see the stable rate for the unemployment.
All right,
And
thank you.
Nowadays is 13.6. 13.6 is general. For the youth, it is 25% almost.
Okay.
Corona is not a new crisis for us, because our economic crisis started especially 2011, but 2017 we feel it in every piece of us.
Okay. Thank you.
President, there is also
Do you think
another
how much
question about
actually the budget's allocated?
From government?
Yeah, for this unemployment program. Yeah.
I don't know the total number, but I know for the each person they will pay for 1,200 Turkish lira for a month. And this is another option also. I haven't mentioned it. And also, if you apply for the government, instead of that, for maybe 60 %60 herhalde değil mi? 60% government can pay instead of you, but in that situation you can your employee cannot work for you.
All right, thank you so much.
We can share a report about this issue if you wish. We can prepare the compensations, the promotions by the government.
But the second option, I said the government can pay 60%, but a lot of people apply for it, and if you apply for now, you cannot take it because the budget has a limit. That's why a lot of people apply for the first option since yesterday. Also, even maybe my country, actually my company, apply for it.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. There's no another question or asking. Okay. If we have, we don't have again the another question for the Mr. Furkan or Mr. Yusuf. We'll
May I have one question?
Adin S. Kunchoro. Okay, it's the last the last questioner for the participant.
Well, thanks, sir. So it's gonna be a very short question. So my question is about, I mean, like, I just read a news about your countries being a major player or key player now in distributing, I mean, in distributing like medical supplies, maskers, and things like that. I mean, like, my question is, how big is your medical industry or pharmacy in your country? I mean, like, your country is like a medical tourism destination. I mean, like, if it is so, how big is the medical or the public health sectors in your country in terms of GDP? Thank you.
Başkanım, birkaç istatistik paylaşabiliriz istiyorsanız bu konuyla alakalı.
Yani var mı?
Var.
Tamam. We will share statistics for you.
First of all, thank you for a precious question. Let me share you some statistics to understand better the infrastructure, the health sector of Turkey. First of all, we are the top country as the first country in terms of intensive care unit per 100,000 people. And these statistics are regardless of the new 5 big hospitals we are opening in this month. One of them is just opening 2 days later, which is 1 kilometer away from my home, and composed of 2,800 bed capacity. So in this meaning, we will increase the statistics in favor of us. And as you mentioned, the Turkey is a destination of health tourism because the infrastructure is very strong here. In the time of Mr. Obama, there was a demand from USA to Turkey, even the model that Turkey is using, it would like to be copied by them as well, but it couldn't negotiate later. In any case, in any way, Turkey has a strong medical equipment and fabrications because we were producing masks. We have been producing masks more than this crisis time, before than this crisis time, and we were a strong supply. We are a strong supplier of these masks. That is why the government has freely given masks to its citizens as well. And there is a point, I believe, this coronavirus has changed a strong trend in the world. Normally after the World War II, the immigration trend was from east to west. But right now, the Western people understood that they are maybe in comfort, but they are not in safe in Europe. And the standardization of humanity, the ethics, the feeling of being human is not understood in Europe, in the Western civilizations, like in the Eastern one. In this meaning, I believe that especially people who are mature more than 60 years old will immigrate to some East countries in safe and in a strong infrastructure in terms of health. And the first option most probably will be Turkey in this meaning.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Yusuf, thank you for the explanation. I mean, like, I'm going to share my email address so that I can get your statistic on your, I mean, like your public sectors, infrastructure, or maybe your manufacturing. Thank you. I'm going to share the email through the admin or the moderator. Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Yusuf.
Mr. Ajman, also we will hear reports for corona effects in Turkey, and also we want to share with all participants of that conversation.
Okay.
Thanks, Furkan. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Furkan, do you have question again? If you want, it's from the ICYF committee from Indonesia. The last question by chat. I will to read it. I would like to ask to Mr. Furkan, do the government have any collaboration with the young community there? What kind of young people can do in that situation, especially in economic side?
And most of the young people joined some help programs for the government. But for the economy, especially our organization, Young MÜSİAD, work with the main MÜSİAD together and with our crisis desk, and we are prepared, and we collect all requests from all sectors, and we sent our government, and we try to help to regulate some laws about our sectors. And now this is just it.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, this is the end of the question. Sorry, we will going to the next speaker, Mr. Furkan, and then Mr. Yusuf. Thank you for your explanation and your all answer. For the next speaker, we will going to the Mr. Safi Effendi. This is the president of ICYF Indonesia.
Yes, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you for all my friends, my honorable all of the online panelists. May Allah give us strength in facing this global challenge. According to my opinion, COVID-19 brings pain and challenge as well. In fact, humankind have been trained in facing crisis. What we have to do is to be grateful for what Allah has given us and doing continuous improvement. Today, VUCA, volatile uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity impacts more in our daily life because of this COVID-19. It is only 3 months into 2020, but business across different sectors in the country have been hit hard as the COVID-19 pandemic on economic activities nationwide. The government officially announced the first to confirm COVID-19 cases at the beginning of March. In fact, humankind have been trained in facing crisis. What we have to do is to be grateful for what Allah has given us and do continuous improvement. For me, as an international diplomat and young entrepreneur, COVID-19 will bring new normal in many aspects, such as business, economics, and life. Our habits are going to move after this pandemic, and it also change our customers' behavior. At least we must do these 5 things. Number 1, having growth mindset, not fixed mindset. You can read the Carol Dweck books. Number 1, embrace the challenge, keep trying and never give up. Can always improve, more persistent. In this era, mindset is the only thing that make us different and make us being a high-class entrepreneur. High-class response is make you a high-class entrepreneur. Number 2, survive and prepare. In this pandemic, we have to survive and prepare. Survive until the end of the pandemic, then prepare the new strength and energy after the pandemic. 3, making asset consolidation, both human resource and natural resource. 4, focus on cash money, prevent long-term credit. The shorter credit we have, the stronger our business will be. 5, starting new things and learning new skills. For example, Zoom application, which changed the offline meeting to online meeting. According to my opinion, it is the challenging window which separates the youth who has a winning mentality and the loser mentality. I am very sure people who is participating in this online meeting are the winner who has a winning mentality. Keep focus, keep moving, do something and grow forever. Yes, thank you, moderator.
Okay, this
Yes.
thank you for the explanation. Maybe if the participant wanted to direct question for the Mr. Safi Effendi from Turkey or from Indonesia or from the other countries, maybe you can give the raise hand and then directly to the comment or give the speaker. If didn't have, we'll to move to the directly the first speaker. Okay, there's any question to the Mr. Safi Effendi? Okay.
I want to ask something.
Okay. Can you give your name?
Hello, I'm interested with the very spirit speech by Mr. Shafiq Effendi, right? Well,
Yes.
the question is, we know that not everybody can make sure that they need to stay at home and just do the physical distancing. Do you have any good ways for them to make sure that they are no need to go out without, if there is no necessity or something urgent? And then the second thing, like you said, this is the first question. And the second question is, you said that we can keep moving on and do some creativity and to be entrepreneur. Do you have any advices or suggestions that you have ever done that make create something entrepreneur in this pandemic? That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Raisha. Okay, please answer Mr. Shafiq Effendi directly.
Okay, thank you, sister. In my experience, in this pandemic, it's about change your habit. It's about change your perspective of the market. So, if you can read the situation, you can get the opportunity from your home. For example, in Indonesia, we call it GoFood. GoFood is the new normal and very fast habits of the new habits in Indonesia. Nah, new behavior new behavior of your customer of in this pandemic. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. So one
Okay.
kind of the thing we can do is like doing some entrepreneur like GoFood.
Okay. Oh yeah. Nah, so as an entrepreneur, young entrepreneur, you can you must be read the situation and you read the core problem, and your business is the solution of the problem. That's the strategy for my business, for my new business in pandemic era.
Oh, what example? What sector actually?
Okay. For example, in the pandemic is the Zoom make a new offset in their business because the situation. So the situation is the good for the Zoom for the business like Zoom and Google Hangouts.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
sister.
Yes, ada another participation wanted to asking again for Mr. Shafiq Effendi.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Motivate. Okay. Hello, Mr. Shafiq. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Artagan Malpi. I'm from Palembang, Sumatera. I have a question for you. In this pandemic, is it a barrier or opportunity to you as a motivator and entrepreneur? Saya terjemahkan ya. Apakah apakah dengan pandemi corona ini menjadi penghalang ataupun peluang bagi Anda untuk menciptakan sebuah karya?
Okay, so for me, the pandemic is the out of the control. So I just focus to my control. My control likes my perspective, my energy, my team. So I just focus to my resource. This is the way for me to get the strong energy for the or for the condition of pandemic. So it's about perspective in the problem. For me, the
Okay.
mindset is number one factor. What we respond the pandemic. So this the main of the main of my way to save my business. So for me, it's about mindset, because mindset is the control of me.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you,
Enough.
Arta.
Okay, maybe. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Arta and Yunus. Sorry. There's any participation is for the last question for Mr. Safi Effendi.
Yes.
Is any asking again the last question before we are going to the next speaker?
Ada yang ketawa lagi nih.
Okay. If we didn't have again, we'll move for the next speaker, the fourth speaker, Mr. Ajib. Yeah. Mr. Ajib from HIPMI, the Young Entrepreneurs and Association in Indonesia. Mr. Ajib.
Okay, thank you, Bro.
The time's for you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks before for my big brother, Bro Tantan Taufiq Lubis, for inviting me to discuss with all honorable audience, with OIC, Youth Indonesia, and our friends from Turkey. If we talk about Turkey, directly I remember to my favorite soccer club, Galatasaray. Long time no see football player. Yeah. Okay, and thank you for Your Excellency, Mr. Furkan Akbal, the President of Young MÜSİAD. I can see and I wish you are the next president of Turkey. Thank you for Safi Effendi, the president of OIC Youth Indonesia, who have the full enthusiasm. I learned a lot from you. Okay, let me discuss with all of you one step backward before we face the problem COVID-19 like this. Actually, I think Indonesia have a strong structure and a strong fundamental for economy. The indicators is about we can see the economic growth at 1918. At 1918, we have the strong and good growth economy and 5.02%, and I think it's a good growth economy. For the second indicator, we have we talk about the population, because population is about the demand side. So Indonesia with 270 million people, I think it's a good market, and it describes how big Indonesia. Our population is the four big population in the world. So I think it's a good business, and we have strong fundamentals in economy. For the third, we talk about the gross domestic product. We have about approximately $1 trillion annually. I think it's a big number, and we can multiply this number. So from three indicators, I just want to tell you that Indonesia is a big country, and we always have optimism among the problem like this, we have a good future. And now we talk about the problem. In the economic problem in Indonesia, we have three big problems. For the one is about the poverty. The poverty in Indonesia, just a little number. We have under 5%, so I think it's a good number. And the second is about the unemployment. We have single-digit unemployment. At the last year, at 2019, we just have 9.8%. So I think it's a good number too. For the three, is the biggest problem in Indonesia is about the economic gap, because the indicators of economic gap is about the Gini ratio. The Indonesian Gini ratio is about 1.38, and I think it's not ideal number. Then in earlier this year, we have the big hopes. We have the we see that 2020 in this year is a very good year before we face the problem in COVID-19. We can see how the government make assumption at macroeconomics is about the growth economic, for example, because a government we plotting at the 5.4, I think, percent for this year. But at early March, we have the problem. We all know we have faced the COVID-19, and I think it is very make a construction with our economy. And I think our crisis for now is very complicated. It's more complicated when we remember it's not our first time we face the problem. At 1998, we have the problem too, but I think it's not complicated as now, because for now we have the problem at the supply and demand side. It's hit hard at every single supply and every single demand. So what is the big problem after COVID-19? It is the shrinking economy, because the function of economy is about the velocity of economy. When the velocity economy move faster, it will be growing the people's wealthy, I think. So when the economic get the shrink, so the problem is about the people's wealthy. So what can we do over that for the next we can rebound the economy and accelerate the economy after the COVID-19? If we talk about the problem, if we talk about the COVID-19, if we talk about Corona, I think it's so enough. There are health ministry and other and team BNPB and I think in Indonesia. So for now, we must think how economy can grow up, how economy can accelerate. Because I think and we wish together the second semester in 2020 this year we can rebound the economy, and when the time is come, we must together how to accelerate this economy. So and I read the data about the export-import with Indonesia and Turkey, because it's the one of the our comparative advantage. Indonesia have a comparative advantage for the business, and I think we must focus in this sector business. This about agro business and maritime business. For example, the last year our commodities export to Turkey is about the rubber, agro business, fish, and crude palm oil. This commodity is the comparative advantage of Indonesia. So I think we must focus how can we accelerate the business after the pandemic COVID-19, and maybe it will be hard times ahead, but we must have optimism, and we can accelerate the economy together with the entrepreneur and the government. Thank you, and waiting for discuss together. Thank you.
Explanation. Thank you for the Mr. Ajib, yeah, as the representative of the HIPMI, the Association Young Entrepreneurs in Indonesia. Maybe we will to directly to the next question, especially for the Mr. Ajib. Is there participation when you want to asking directly to Mr. Ajib? You just to raise hand and directly to make the comment. Okay, Mr. Andi Fauzan. You want to asking? Can the team? Okay, Mr. Andi Fauzan, please.
Okay,
Your question.
thank you, moderator. And I want to ask for question for Mr. Ajib Hamdani, and my friend in the expertise in the tax in Indonesia. How about our tax in 2020? Because economic business is slowed down, and there are so many maybe to keep up and to check tax right now is delay for some business, and the other income tax, the biggest tax for Indonesian budget. How about your future in the next Indonesian budget? I think it's very worth it about that. Thank you, Mr. Ajib.
Okay, Mr. Ajib, you can directly answer, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Andi Fauzan. Yeah. I know I'm an entrepreneur. We can contribute for this country with every side, I think. Okay, how about the 2020? We must optimize when our finance minister Bu Sri Mulyani give us explanation about the worst case that our growth economy will negative until 1.4%, but I think from IMF there are still optimism projection, because IMF give us the contraction, but we still have the positive growth economic 1% until 2% this year. So IMF have the prediction, and I believe with IMF. And how about we call APBN, because it very constructed. Let's say about the taxation. Our taxation, I think it will be shortfall about 22-25% at this year. So it will be new homework. How about the new our APBN, about the financial institution. Nah, in the other side is about the business, because the business it's the main source where the tax officer get their revenue. It's not an easy thing, but I think government have the alternative way out, because they produce the Perpu number 1. The Perpu number 1 give the government get the 5% from 3% about debt. Oh, we talk about debt. We talk about debt. 3% and for the next until the 5% or above. So I think it's the government regulation, and in this December we will construct at the APBN, but we have the way out because the Perpu number 1 2020. Thank you, Mr. Andi Fauzan, and we must optimism when the second semester of this year the economy will rebound, and the the taxation will be better. Thank you, Mr. Andi Fauzan.
Okay, Mr. Ajib, some big question for me. What's your indicator about optimism in the second semester?
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, Pak Jokowi, have the explanation that maybe the June and the June 2020, this COVID-19 will be a good movement, healthy side, and for the next is about the economic side, and I think government have a lot of ways to accelerate the economy. For example, last week I discussed with coordinating Ministry of Economic Indonesia, and they give the regulation that they will accelerate the economy and collaborate with the young association entrepreneur to they have the incentive and incentive, fiscal incentive and monetary incentive, for example, and then the young entrepreneur will growing the business at the field. So about the way we optimism with the second semester, it's just about the healthy side about the COVID-19 is it's the BNPB and health minister. We believe they will get the way out, and the economic with the coordinating Ministry of Economic collaborate with Kadin and HIPMI, we will accelerate. What is the sector business? For example, I think the agribusiness, maritime, healthy sector, for example, for the other commodities, and for the small medium enterprises, coordinating Ministry of Economic will give us a lot of incentive, and it makes us still optimism. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for Mr. Ajib. And then there any question for the participation? Then another question. Okay, it's from Juyanti. Yeah. One for asking about how for COVID-19 influence due to the economic. If COVID-19 will take a long term, don't know when finish. Then what is the impact with food, energy, endurance, and what do you think about this? Optimist for pessimist. Okay, Mr. Ajib, is the question by chat from Ms. Sri Jumawati. Hello.
Okay, Mrs. Sri Jumawati.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
By chat,
this
by chat.
audience, there are a lot of my friends here, Andi Kunchoro. Maybe you can give enlightenment to member, for example, Bro Ardantia Sahreja, well known as Bro Dacil. Maybe you can give us the enlightenment too. For Sri Jumiati, what happened if this COVID-19 with long term? I think it will be honestly, it will be a big problem because it will change a lot of business model. And for example, we talk about the fish. There are a lot of supply, but there are no demands. So the bridge for this problem is how about the IT? So e-commerce is the answer. So how about if the COVID-19 will be a long time? It will be change our business system, business cycles, and I think Indonesia must have a lot of incentive. For example, for just now, Indonesia just have approximately 500 trillion US dollar, and it just until this month, this May or June, I think. If the COVID-19 until July or August, I think government needs another liquidity to back up this crisis, maybe until the 1,000 trillion rupiah. So as entrepreneur, we just following the regulation because we can act the business when the government give the regulation, for example, about the PSBB, pembatasan sosial berskala besar. If our factory, if our, for example, if our factory want to still going ahead for the business, we can do that because there are limitation with the regulation of from the government. So I think how about if the COVID-19 in the long term, government needs a lot of money to back up this crisis and winning problem. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ajib, is there any question again from the chat? From Mr. Iqmal. Hello, Mr. Ajib. Do you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, this from Mr. Iqmal by chat. Regarding the bureaucracy in the government, how it can be synergy with the local government to ensure no abundant layoff such resulting higher unemployment, because at times of pandemic, crime rates are potentially high for the crime. Okay, you can give the answer, please.
Yes, this problem is well discussed with Bro Ardianta Sahreja before. How about the unemployment people causes with the layoff from the yes. Because the main problem is about the basic all of us, the basic is about the food, for example. So for the short term, I think we and government must focus for the first thing like this about the food, and it's about the but we talk about the food and other basic needs. we talk about the other problem when there are a lot of layoff and a lot of unemployment people. The problem is about the disposable income, because where there are a lot of layoff, there are no disposable income and it's very construct the demand. So it will be the next problem for the entrepreneur too. So I think for the short term is how government can give the booster for the basic need like this and I think there are for example BLT, bantuan langsung tunai, and I think kartu prakerja it's not a good decision, because for the short term that we need is about the basic need, and basic need can boost the demand, and the demand can boost the economy, and this is a good business. So I think entrepreneur and government must together how all the unemployment people can get the disposable income, and maybe the short the short way is with the BLT, because maybe they have no entrepreneur skill, for example. So we must focus one by one. We must focus for the short term, and we must focus how business can good movement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Ajib answer. Okay, because the time, yeah, we just have the time until 10 p.m. For this discussion. Unfortunately, is the limited by time. So maybe if there's any question again from the participant, we will to directly close for this discussion tonight. Okay, there's any question? The last question maybe. Okay, there's no any question again. Okay, there's very thank you very much for the our panelists from the Turkey, Indonesia, from the HIPMI, Kadin, and Genç MÜSİAD. Okay, before we close this discussion, we from the ICYF give the I wanted to give the information about our activity as the far ICYF in Indonesia has the projects in facing COVID-19 in various cities in Indonesia affected by the COVID-19, like in Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Medan, Aceh, and Jawa Tengah, and other city, and will still going until now. And then for the next day, we have the announce about the campaign "Stay at Home" for like the campaign by video. If you wanted to join be to the participation, we'll give. Okay, Mr. Tantan Lubis, if we wanted to give the. Okay, Mr. Tantan is the one question again from the Mr. Ajib for the closing the statement before the closing statement maybe. Okay, Mr. Tantan, directly.
Sorry, I disturb your time, moderator.
Okay.
But I have important question for Mr. Ajib
Okay.
about one about, as we know, our government is already allocated some money for recovery the COVID pandemic, 400 billion rupiah. The question is, it is enough for recovery national economic of Indonesia, because only 100 billion allocated for economic stimulus. That's the first question. The second question is, we already heard about the case special staff of president who got some project from the government to facing COVID pandemic in learning, online learning for the victim of COVID pandemic. It is compatible or not for basic need of the people of the victim of COVID pandemic or not? I need your more explanation about this. Sorry, moderator, and sorry, Mr. Ajib. I need the clear answer from you, from HIPMI side. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, my big brother. I call him Abang. Thank you, Bang Tolup, for the discussion. For the first case from you about the for the budgeting of the 400 trillion, not billion, trillion. We have trillion rupiah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's not enough at all because can you imagine our gross domestic product is about 1 trillion US dollar. For the ideal posture, how much the budget for back up this crisis is about 10%, 10% from with our GDP. So if our GDP is 1 trillion, approximately we need how much when the 10%, so we need 100 billion US dollar, not rupiah, not rupiah. So that's approximately 1,500 trillion rupiah. That's the ideal number for backup for the budget for the backup this crisis, because as I told you, this problem is more complicated than our problem when we faced the problem at 1998, because we have the shrinking economy, the supply and side demand side it hit hard and so on. So I think it's not ideal number, and we need 10% from our GDP as the ideal number. And for the second, I'm sorry, it's I think before about the staff of president, I think this regulation is not a good regulation from government, because for now we need the basic need, not for the
course, online course
and others. For no, and we must focus with this point for the basic need, the demand sector, and we must make sure the economy with good moving. So I think training and so on is not a good regulation from our government, especially for example, ruang guru as the staff sus president is not a good point too, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the Mr. Ajib. It's the last question from Mr. Tantan before we closing our discussion. Okay, I will give the information again about the ICYF Indonesia. The information before we close this session. ICYF Indonesia, we have done some of the project in facing COVID-19 in various cities in Indonesia affected by COVID-19, like this Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, and Medan, and then for all. Okay, and then for the next project, we will make the content video, campaign video for stay at home. If the participants want to join this campaign, you can directly give the message to our admin in Instagram or this session. So that's all for this discussion. The respected participants, on behalf of the webinar organization team, we would like to thank you for all your attention to be part of this evening webinar sharing session. And we will highly appreciate it if you could give us feedback on how to better improve upcoming session. The link to the short survey can be accessed below in the chat. Thank you very much. We'll end this discussion by say hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. This all for me as a moderator Akmal Junyadi. Bila taufiq hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Terima kasih Bang Ajib, Bang Andi
wabarakatuh.
Baujan, Bang Intigam.
Iqmal, ya.
Semuanya.
Guru Zurus, gule-gule.
Ya, Mr. Intigam ini dari Azerbaijan ini.
Sarjana pertanian sekarang. Dari Ustaz. Terus emang Ustaz nggak boleh bisnis, boleh kan main kebun gitu. Iya, jangan Ustaz sholat aja kan, bener itu, udah bener lah. Bang Tolup nyanyi Bang Tolup. Iya bener itu.
Lagi Bro Safi, sampai ketemu. Terima kasih banyak.
Yo, thank you.
Terima kasih ya.
Terima kasih ya. Yo. Iya, benar tuh, udah benar itu. Si ini Pak Ujul masih buka dia itunya. Apa namanya? Pak Ujul masih buka. Pak Ujul.
Ya saya habis selesai makan-makan nih.
Iya, itu dia. Makan jaya deh ya, berarti ya. Apa tuh?
Oh, ini live meeting nih, live meeting. Berarti aku live meeting.
Halo, moderator.
Enggak. Masih
Iya.
banyak.
Iya, Impul itu kan investasi hari tua itu.
Halo, moderator. Oh iya.
Iya. Kemana duit dia?
Iya.
Dia kemana? Si Pak Ujul. Gimana cuy, dia dapat duit banyak, masa gede banget kebutuhan dia?
Ya.
Apa-apa lah, masih muda lah. Ntar kalau udah tuaan mikir loh beli kebun. Itu pun kalau masih ada duitnya. Ntar kalau udah habis, nggak apa-apa. Iya. Iyalah. Iya.